Hello, and welcome to Don't Ignore the Elephant, the podcast where we talk about the stuff that no one else will, the elephant in the room. I'm Liz O'Riordan. I'm a breast cancer surgeon with breast cancer, and during my career, I've had a lot of elephants to deal with. I've learned that talking about them, getting them out in the open, can help you know that you're not alone. Whether it's cancer or other illnesses, mental health issues, sexual problems, bullying, harassment, or the death of a loved one, there are loads of things that can be hard to discuss. I know how powerful it can be to hear someone else talk honestly about their own problems. Some of my guests have lived these experiences, whilst others have dedicated their lives to helping those who have. I'm going to be chatting to them about it and asking the questions everyone else is too afraid to ask. In this episode, we'll be talking about cancer, death, suicide, and euthanasia. I'm so excited to welcome my first guest, the amazing actor, producer, and soon-to-be Strictly megastar, Greg Wise. Now, I had a huge crush on Greg after seeing the film Sense and Sensibility. He played John Willoughby, the handsome, rugged, rain-soaked bachelor who literally swept Kate Winslet off her feet. You might have watched him singing in Walking on Sunshine or playing Lord Mountbatten in The Crown. Perhaps you've heard of his wife, Emma Thompson. He won a certain celebrity baking show in 2019 and is now ready to don the fake tan for this year's Strictly. But as life-changing as these competitions might be, Greg has already faced something far more profound. His older sister Clare was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2013. She died 3 years later, aged 51. They lived on the same street, and Greg was her live-in carer for the last 3 months of her life. He took over her blog when she was unable to write, and the blog became a book, Not That Kind of Love. He's a patron of the charity End of Life Doula UK, which aims to support every person to experience the death that they choose. Now, Greg and I first met over online cocktails because I won him in an auction. We realised that we both talk honestly and openly about cancer and death, so I'm thrilled he's able to join me today. Welcome to the podcast, Greg.
Oh, Liz, thank you so much. And I think we also just need to say, the few hours before you and I met having a cocktail, you having won me in a death forum,
Yes.
I was dealing with the death of a neighbour up the street who I had literally tripped over 6 or 7 hours earlier in her bedroom.
You were, weren't you?
So death is all around, all the time.
It is. Now, I know your happy hour starts at 5, and we're recording this mid-morning, so it might be a little early for a martini, although I'm told Mrs. Weiss can make a mean one.
She's today finally finishing 3 films back to back. She started filming in January this year. We're now the 3rd of September, and she has her very last day. So I cycled off early this morning and got a bottle of vermouth and a bottle of something I think called bath gin.
Uh-huh.
So I will leave that out for her because I won't be in when she gets back, and she can make herself a banging martini.
Sounds wonderful. Now, I read your book just after my cancer had come back, and it was really painful to actually see what might happen to me in the future. But I was also shocked to find out just how hard it was for you to look after Claire when she was dying at home. Because simple things like emptying a catheter that I take for granted, and I think doctors often forget that carers have very little medical nursing knowledge. Just how scary was it?
We were very lucky, Claire and I, because we're both problem solvers.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that you'll know, having been in the business, is every day someone is going through an end-of-life journey, new things appear. And sometimes quite minor things, which then you know this is the start of something becoming more and more major. And to start with, it was to do with drinking. She couldn't necessarily drink out of a glass anymore, so we used straws, and then she couldn't drink out of straws because the side of her face was getting slightly palsied. So I thought, one of these little Tommy Tippy baby things would work. You just try and work things through. I mean, I was going to go as far as just getting a watering can and getting it to like that. But it is, and one of the very good things about this with the two of us is that we had a very clear focus as a team to try and solve things, because that's what we both enjoyed doing. What happened was, as it progressed, and in fact, we were just at the start of a major change in the way that her care could have been delivered, because it was starting to get medical, properly medical. It had been pretty much palliative from the time that I turned up and moved in, which was about 3 months before she died. But now we were starting to get, she was catheterized. We were just that day, the day she died, we were going to get a care package from the local council. And I think that was the reason that she chose that day to die. I mean, this is something we can talk about a little bit later on if we want, about the incredible power of the mind over the body and the body over the mind. Claire's body had pretty much disappeared. We had our lovely GP, who's known Claire for years and years, hadn't seen her for about 6 weeks, came in probably 10 days before she died, came back to me in the other room and said, I have no idea how she's still alive. I can't believe by looking at her body. But she had that will. But we did get to a place where it was above my pay grade. And I realized that. And I was able to forgive myself for that, because I'm not a trained professional. I was a brother trying to do whatever I could do with, I think, what I coined the 3 C's, which was being calm, capable, and consistent. Which are 3 wonderful C's to bounce around. Quite often you can't make any of them.
No.
But you have to forgive yourself. That's the point.
You do. Was it hard being a brother as well as a carer? Were you able to have those 2 relationships?
I think in a strange way it was probably easier because of what was over 50 years of history between the 2 of us. We'd been very close. We remained very close. She lived 50 yards down the street from where I live with my family. So we were able probably to bypass a lot of the things that a professional carer would have to sort out with whoever they're caring for. And also there's this, it's a glorious act of love from her side of things, that she will accept that her brother will strip her down, put her in the plastic commode. He'll be dressed in his cheap Marks and Spencer's. I won't hear anything said against Marks and Spencer's underpants. They're marvelous. I'm wearing a pair at the moment.
Always have a clean pair in your handbag.
And that it is, I think, an act of love that she allowed me to do that, to take her into the shower, wheel her in, and wash her and dry her and do the bits of powdering. And the bits then that I couldn't do, she had her 18 girls. She had her very, very close, 4 very close girlfriends who would come and do the things that I couldn't necessarily do, and give her a little bit of a spa day in the bed. And all of
You
that.
mean you're not good at putting on nail polish?
I think we were slightly beyond the nail polish stage, but what we would call washing the undercarriage is not necessarily what a brother wants to do, or the sister wants the brother to do, but everything else. And I was very, very fortunate, because just after I left school, I'd worked as a thing called a community service volunteer, where I was sent to Nottingham University, oddly, on my year off between school and uni. I ended up at university looking after disabled students there. So I had a third-year student with muscular dystrophy, and I had to lift him out of his chair, lift him onto the toilet, wipe his bum, take him for a bath, turn him in bed when he rang a little bell. So I was already, from the age of 18, reasonably versed in not having that embarrassment. But of course, it's all led by the person that you are working with.
Exactly.
And again, that's a very interesting thing to think about, that you are working together.
Yeah.
And I think there's sometimes some difficulties in people thinking, oh, I know what's best. I'm the able-bodied one. Let me help. Let me do, rather than working out where you are required and where it's better for you not to help, to stand back.
I think it's the same with the doctor-patient relationship. Often the
Yeah.
doctor thinks they know best, and you
Yeah.
never actually stop and listen.
Yeah. Well, that's the great thing, and I know you're having Catherine Mannix on one of your chats soon, but
Yeah.
the book that she's just finished, Listen, is wonderful because it's so simple, and so many of us do it so badly.
Yeah.
We talk a lot, we don't listen well.
We're too
So
busy working out what to say next,
that's
like
it.
I've just done now.
Yes, shut up, Liz. Shut
Send
up.
me a
Let me speak. It's all about me.
It is all about you for an hour or so. Now, in the book, you talked about throwing shit outwards that Ash mentioned. Can you explain that for the listeners?
Oh, well, bless him. He was a boy in my year at drama school and my flatmate for 3 years, Ashley Collishaw, who, after about 5 or 10 years in, realised that he didn't want to be an actor and wanted to be a vicar. So he trained. I actually wrote to his bishop as his lay referee, saying, "I think this guy would make a wonderful, wonderful vicar." So he's now a vicar up in Cheltenham, and I was probably pretty low, probably halfway through looking after Clare in her last months, and bless him, he came down, and after I'd got Clare settled, he and I wandered out into the back garden with a bottle of whiskey. A slight side story. I fed him too much whiskey and he had a heart attack the next day. I'm told it wasn't down to the whiskey, doctor.
Okay, I believe you.
But Ash, as a vicar, God bless him, told me what he'd learned, because of course he spends a lot of time with people who are dying, about throwing shit outwards. And I loved the fact that a reverend used the word shit.
Yeah.
The person in the center of all the circles, of course, is the person who is dying. And the first circle around them is the partner, the child, the very, very close family. Then there's another circle out that, which is the wider family. Then a circle outside that, which are the close friends. Then another circle, the more disparate friends. And of course, as we know in our lives anyway, even when we're hale and hearty, we have circles of family and friendships, and things build out up to the final circles, which of course are all your Facebook friends and your Twitter followers. And Ash was saying, you are absolutely allowed to throw shit outwards. So me, in the first circle around Clare, in despair, is allowed to turn to the circle outside me and go, ah!
Yeah.
Clare in the middle of it, or Clare in the center, is allowed to turn to me and go, ah! But
Yeah.
what is absolutely not allowed is for the outer circle to take their neurosis and their fear, their anxiety and their anger, and turn it inwards onto me. And I am absolutely not allowed to go, ah, and turn it inwards onto Clare. But of course I did, because that's being human.
Yeah.
Of course you do that, and then you have to try and forgive yourself. But one of the fascinating things which I learned as I was going through it all, and it's one of the reasons that I picked up the blog that Clare had started and had been unable to write for quite a while because she was too ill. I took it up purely as a means of defense, to defend
Yeah.
myself against the outer circles, to defend myself against the neurosis and anxiety and anger of the outer circles.
Yeah.
And I realized that I was spending an awful lot of my time calming the outer circles down. And if you read the book, I think you'll probably be able to find the moment when I realized that it was not my responsibility, my job, or was it caring, not to be honest about Clare, about where Clare was at that time.
Yeah.
And for quite a few weeks, I was couching, saying, oh, it's all good and fine, and she was in the garden today, and we did this and we did that. And I didn't write anything about, it's pretty scary, she can't do this, she can't do that. I was trying to keep it light to protect the outer circles, which
Exactly.
is insane. And I realized at a certain point in time that who was I to do that? Some sort of God figure? No, you've got to try and be as honest as possible. With, of course, an awful lot of the outer circle are people who love her, who she loves, and we have to try and find a way of being honest. And you will know this as a doctor as well, that there can be loving honesty, kind honesty, or honesty that makes you feel better for having unloaded.
Yeah.
We just have to get all the information out here. So this is it, blah, 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 without
Yeah.
going, how are you going to hear this? How am I
There's
going to frame this?
Exactly. There's telling someone they've got cancer and telling someone they've got cancer.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's that protection. It comes from love. I know when I was having chemo, I would cry in the shower, and I didn't want my mum and dad to know how ill I was feeling because
Yeah.
I wanted to protect them.
Yeah.
But then you're not offering them the chance to love you and support you.
Well, that's it. That's it. I mean, it's so fascinating. One of the things I've been doing more than anything else, I think, since Claire died, was just going around and telling everyone we all have to talk about death. We all have to be honest about it. I've put together a death box which has templates of advanced wishes, of where the keys are for the spare set of car keys are, what the code is on that, what my password, all of these things. We have just to try and be open and honest because it is an act of love. It is cruel withholding information. It is cruel not being able to share how you're feeling with others. And again, with having looked after Claire, my ideas about my end of life changed completely.
I can imagine.
Because I realized that the months I spent with her were an absolute combination of trauma and privilege.
Yeah.
I mean, almost totally balanced. And in the past, in my earlier life, I thought, if I get the terminal diagnosis, it's up into the hills with a bottle of whiskey, the hypothermic end, glorious. I'm a mountain climber. I know how easy it is to get hypothermia. I've had hypothermia. Once you get through the first being very cold bit of hypothermia, it's really calm. It's rather
They say
lovely.
that.
So just take yourself up, bottle of whiskey, strip down.
Sainsbury's pants or M&S?
Completely naked. Come on.
Okay.
And then I realized that would be cruel to those left behind who love me.
But does it matter what they think? Because this is all about your death.
It does matter what they think. It absolutely does. Because if you love someone in your life, you hopefully love them when your life is over.
Yeah.
And if they've loved you, hopefully they will continue to love you after you've died. If you take yourself off in a unilateral way, now the point of this is I will still be unilateral, but it will be later if I am able, obviously. And again, we can talk about the whole euthanasia end of life thing if you want later on. But the time I spent, those last months I spent with my sister were so potent and so extraordinary. And we found ourselves in a place that we would not have accessed had we not had that time together under those circumstances. As horrible as it was a very powerful time. And I think those around you, your close family, if you have close family, your close friends, your support system, you are denying them the opportunity of finding all of ourselves in that space.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that at some point within all of that, I won't go, do you know what? I've had enough.
Fuck it.
Goodbye.
Yeah.
And I would dearly love still to be able to take myself up into the hills behind the cottage in Scotland with a very fine bottle of probably West Coast, maybe an Islay, nice Jura, nice peaty malt, a posh bottle. Of course, like with my pants, I normally just get cheap whiskey because I probably drink too much of it. And I'm a Northern Puritan, so I'm not worth good whiskey. But I think for this...
The last glass.
It'll be a banging bottle of
Yeah.
something marvellous.
Were you surprised that Clare didn't have a will or a funeral plan?
No. My sister, bless her, lived a life of denial. And I think, again, one of the things that became clear, I was fortunate enough because of the work I do, because I'm self-employed, to have been with my mum when she died.
Yeah.
And I spent her last few months on and off with her. She lived on her own up in York. And I was with my dad for his last couple of months, oddly, because I found myself filming very close to where he lived. So I'd stay with him while I was filming and continue staying with him on the days when I wasn't working. And people die the way they've lived. I think that's that became very clear to me. So my dad was very pragmatic, very withdrawn. So the time I spent with him before his death, endlessly shuttling to local charity shops to the tip, collating things, because he was a professor of architecture, collating things that should go back to university, collating things that should go here. Oh, this is borrowed from the faculty of whatever, that has to go back
kind
to them.
Like clearing house to stop you doing it.
Yeah, a lot of his family were fine artists. A lot of his friends were fine artists, so he had a lot of art and sculpture, and everything was labelled. Who had done it, when he'd got it, all of this, who should have it. And I did all of this. We then found him an apartment in a care home so he could still be reasonably independent, but still have that set up around him if he needed it. He visited it. He drew a plan of it. He worked out exactly what furniture he was going to take with him, what paintings, where they would go. My sister and I put everything in a big van and took it down. And he went to go and stay with his partner, came and visited the place that we'd already filled with his. It would just look wonderful, looked like a mini version of where he'd been living for the last few decades. And he saw it, and he saw that it was good and fantastic. And I'll probably move in next week, but I just need to get a little bit more able to do that. So he went back to stay with his partner, and I took myself off for a week's holiday with my wife and daughter to Egypt. As soon as the plane hit the runway, he was dead.
Wow.
Heart attack. So he went off his way, very pragmatic. My mum, fiery, Eastern European extraction, Croatian, Transylvanian parents, had a lot of anger in her, was very vocal. Her last months were angry and vocal. My sis was a woman of a certain age with a cat, had never had.
Now, I've been a single lady with a cat. I'm not hearing any abuse for the cat ladies.
Okay, I'm not being disparaging. I'm just saying, don't get so defensive now, Liz. Be kind.
I will.
And she was a powerful, independent, high up in the various organizations that she worked with the expense account, the soft top sports car, the parking space at the office, the disposable income, the 100 pairs of shoes, but did not want to go the route that I had gone with partner and children and whatever else. Had no relationship whatsoever with her body when she was healthy.
Yeah.
Therefore had no relationship with her body when it was falling apart, which is why she lasted so long, because she was very cerebral. Coming back to what our lovely GP had said. And if I ever tried to get a little bit too deep into an emotional talk, the physical and the metaphorical hand would come up.
Right.
Stop. Just stop.
Yeah.
I became an absolute therapy monkey when I realized that I had to do an awful lot of work to help me through the second half of my life. And Claire was not able to access that, to do that. She was not able to explore a lot of the things that she and I had in our childhood that was not necessarily healthy, which of course a lot of people have, a lot of kids have, but hopefully we can work through it and not repeat it when we have our own children. So she was, maybe denial is too strong a word when she was healthy, but she was someone who didn't want to confront anything that was too dark, emotionally dangerous, that would expose her too much. So of course she didn't make a will. Of course she had no end of life plan. Of course her brother, who's the pragmatist, had read all the bloody books, had read the Atul Gawandis and all of that. And Claire was doing it wrong. She was doing it wrong. She wasn't doing it right. She was doing it wrong because we needed to do this. We needed to do that. We needed to work out the balance between the opiates and actually being able to have a conversation. We need to do this. We need to. Yeah, she was just she wasn't doing it properly.
No, or maybe she was for her. She was doing it right for her.
She was doing it the only way she could do it. That's the point. And again, that was the other thing that it was her gig. It wasn't my gig.
And that's hard to accept, isn't it? Or can be.
Yeah. Well, yes. You keep being reminded. The universe keeps thumping you over the head, saying, "Just stop it. This is her thing." What was wonderful was that she was able to meet with a will lawyer. Gosh, probably only 3 weeks before she died.
Mm-hmm.
Who came round to the house that I'd organised, and she sat her down, and we'd already done a little bit of homework and worked out most of the things. But goodness me, as her executor, she didn't half leave me in a lot of shit. So much stuff that I had begged her to do that would have just saved an awful lot of post-death trauma for me.
Probate can be exhausting.
Oh God, and just I have made a documentary about tax avoidance. I'm not interested in tax avoidance or tax evasion, but the way that she left her affairs, a stupidly enormous amount of money went to the government that shouldn't have.
Yeah.
So there we are. But that's fine.
I think this drives me mad. I think a lot of doctors are too scared to tell patients they're dying, and they don't get the chance to sort their affairs out or talk about who what's what.
But that's why you sort your affairs out when you're healthy, when you're hale, when you're hearty. It's what I've been banging on to everyone. I'm really boring now. When mates come round for dinner or drinks or whatever, and I say, right, have you done this? Have you thought about that? And I've got a chum who was on a ventilator last year. He still hasn't got a will. He's got 3 kids. He's been married for 40 years. They haven't got a will.
When did you write yours?
We did our will when our daughter was born.
Yeah.
So that's 20 years ago, and we redo it every 4 or 5 years.
Yeah. I didn't have one. I only wrote mine when my cancer came back. And my husband, Dermot, found it really hard to accept that I might die before him. It wasn't going to happen. It was like the elephant in our room. And I had to sit him down and say, can we just do this, please?
Yeah.
And I was amazed that I hadn't done it before. It just didn't occur.
It is a bit mad, isn't it?
How can we make people start talking and preparing and planning for the end of their life?
I'm banging on an awful lot now about, and it's down to all the conversations that Catherine Mannix and I had, because we found ourselves doing quite a lot of public speaking together. Both of our books were published, and we bang up to various book festivals and then did talks at universities. And it was Catherine who beautifully put it, I think it's in her book, that there are 2 days in our lives that are under 24 hours. The day we were born and the day we die. And we spend all of our time focusing on that first day and completely ignoring the other day. And the idea that we have been discussing heavily was getting, I think it's called PSHE, isn't it, at school, when you start learning sex education, where babies come from. Well, within all of that, learn where babies go to.
Yeah.
Surely. And within all of that, be told how to open a bank account, how to use a post office. All of these things, because people are thrown out of any form of schooling with absolutely no common sense at all, possibly a lot of knowledge, but no common sense.
But you don't know how to live, do you?
Yeah. And I think we have to be able to talk about end of life at the same time as we're talking about beginning of life, because it is all life. It is life right the way through until the last breath, and then it's death.
And it happens to all of us.
And it happens to all of us. It happens to all of us. And if we're able to do it in as light, open, honest, fun way as possible, because of course we laugh about death. We laugh about things that frighten us, that scare us. And if we're able to approach it in a way, now not everyone is going to be able to be as open. And again, looking at the words that are used, past,
Oh God, yeah.
and slipped off,
Cross
and
the rainbow
lost,
bridge.
and,
Yes.
and just saying, are we able to find a vocabulary? Because we're being asked to find vocabularies all the time that we hadn't thought about. We're being asked to think about personal pronouns now.
Yes.
In the whole gender question, we're being asked to reframe the words we use about race. So I think we are able to learn new words, and whether we're able to use the D word now.
Yeah. As a doctor, for the first 10 years of my training, we never said the word cancer.
No.
It was a lump or a
Yeah.
neoplasm or a
Yeah.
malignancy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Which is interesting, because are you not wanting to go there, or are you not wanting the person that you're talking to go there, or do you combined not want to have that conversation?
I think when I was training, you copied what you heard your peers say. And it was that fear that you can't tell the patient they have cancer because they don't need to know. But when I had cancer myself, you suddenly think, well, it happens to 1 in 2 of us. And the language is really interesting. So whenever someone famous dies because of cancer, the media say they lost their battle, they
Yeah,
lost their
God, I
fight.
hate
It
that.
drives
Yeah,
me
horrible,
mad.
horrible.
Were you aware of kind of the language around cancer before Claire had it? And do you think differently about the terms we use now?
Yeah, it's tricky, because I mean, Claire and I walked into a beautiful new building, called the Cancer Centre. So you kind of know why you're there, don't you?
Yeah, you
Really?
do.
I did have to plead with her oncologist, and then later on with the wonderful palliative doctor from the Marie Curie Hospice, to use words properly.
Mm-hmm.
Because Claire was in denial about a lot of the things. The reason she couldn't get out of bed in the last month, 6 weeks, and go to the toilet on her own was because her brother had not done enough physiotherapy with her. It wasn't
Yeah.
that she had bone cancer. It wasn't that she was just filled with tumors and
Yeah.
she had no muscle strength left, and she had no any core strength
Yeah.
and ability to do any of this. And she very quiet, and I begged the doctor to be as clear as he could, and he was beautiful, kind, and calm, and not throwing big words around, just being very clear about everything. And Claire listened to it all and said, "Thank you very much. I want a second opinion." Literally a month before she
Yeah.
died. So it's, again, with looking at the wider society, and when we start talking about death, we have to look at this within the medical training. We have to be able to at the outset say to your peers, straight out of school, straight into medical school, whatever,
Yeah.
an awful lot of the people that you deal with on a day-to-day basis, under your care, will die. That's a given.
Yeah.
So let's start talking about this in year 1. And hopefully, by our 5th year, by the time we become junior doctors or whatever, we'll be well versed, and it won't be scary, and we'll be able to do it. Interestingly, 20 years ago now, my missus did a film called Wit, which had
Oh, it's
been a
brilliant.
Pulitzer Prize-winning play that Mike Nichols directed. An extraordinary piece about a woman dying of ovarian cancer. And about probably 2 or 3 years ago, through the
Mm-hmm.
post, she received a medical award. And this
Oh.
film is being used as a teaching device in some American teaching hospitals
Mm-hmm.
of how not to talk to patients.
I get that.
Yeah, yeah. Because of course you see this film and it's just madness because now the elephant in the room is quite large within the film
Yes.
and no one is discussing it.
No.
Or the doctors are just coming in and saying, right, I know what's best, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. And I think as a doctor, I got so little training in how to tell someone they're dying
Yeah.
and how to realize someone is dying.
Yeah.
It's all about keep them alive at every cost.
Yeah,
And some
which is
people
mad. Which is mad. I mean, this is another thing that makes me so bloody angry. But it's all down to the fact that people are not communicating with each
No.
other. And if we, I would assume if we start a grassroots medical movement about communication,
Yeah.
we would save the NHS billions and
Easily.
billions and billions every year from needless treatment.
The tests and the drugs and the
Yeah,
fluids, and you think,
yeah,
the patient's dying. Have you
yeah,
asked them?
yeah,
The thing that gets me is we don't like telling patients they're dying because it's easier to wait until they slip into a coma.
yeah, yeah.
Someone on death row gets to choose their last meal.
Mm,
But if you're dying, I
mm,
want to say what my last 5 senses are going to be,
yeah,
and we're denying them
yeah,
that.
yeah. So learn to speak death in year one of
Yeah.
medical school. And I know that one of the conversations I had towards the end, and bless her, Claire's oncologist, did come round on a Saturday morning and sit by her bed. This
Hmm.
is probably only about a fortnight before she died, and just try to be as honest as possible with where she was, because I was losing my shit at the time, because I knew we were changing daily and
Yeah.
only facing in one direction, and I was just desperate for. And it wasn't necessarily to have the big conversation, because that's nonsense. There are no last words. There are,
No.
only in novels. But just so that we were able, as a unit together, to be able to make this time as comfortable and comforting as possible.
Yeah.
But again, that was me bringing my shit to the party.
You're
But
allowed.
would you say that actually all these billions of pounds needlessly spent are down to a doctor being scared, being
Yeah.
timid, being embarrassed, frightened?
I think it's a lot of it. I think you go into medicine to save people, and I had no exposure to palliative care.
Mm.
As a trainee, I thought palliative care referral meant you've got days to live, but
Mm.
actually, it's supportive. I should have been referred when I was diagnosed 6 years ago to help with
Mm.
pain control. And I think if you've got consultants who don't want to admit someone is dying, the junior doctors are too scared, and
Mm.
they see people really, really ill, and it's like a low threshold to refer to palliative care, but they're just too scared to do it.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it is amazing the support people can give and just let people die in peace and just say, enough's enough.
We know very clearly that the earlier you go to palliative, the longer you live and the better
Yeah.
quality of life you have. It's that simple. It ain't rocket science.
No. And they cover everything we can't. So the
Yeah,
holistic, the
yeah,
spiritual, the
yeah,
comfort,
yeah,
everything to make it.
yeah, yeah, completely. So we have to, not wanting to be all pejorative about things, but we have to just be a little bit better, don't we?
We really
We have to
do.
be better as individuals. You lot have to be better as practitioners. We have to be better as patients, being able to listen and ask.
Are you scared of dying?
No, 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 because we're all going to die.
Mm.
I mean, it's that wonderful Woody Allen quote, isn't it? I'm not scared of dying. I just don't want to be there at the time. Um,
Love that.
I think dying's a bit of a fucker. I think death's all right. It's the
Yeah,
getting there,
exactly.
which is why, if I am able, or if the law has changed by that time, I would like to be able to choose the time and manner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think as a doctor, I tend to see the bad deaths in hospital. You get
Mhm.
called to the people who are arresting, who are dying, the people who die on the table that you can't save.
Mhm.
I have no real memories of the peaceful deaths. And it's that fear of what it might be like that makes you think, I want to have some control.
Yeah. But again, Catherine, bless her, Catherine Mannix, says, look, I've seen, I don't know, what is it, 15,000, 20,000 deaths, whatever she's been in on. She said there were probably less than half a dozen that I wanted to get in and help.
Yeah.
So, well, I mean, we're all heading that way. I think you will be able to talk about this so much better than me, but I think there can be a cruelty of long-term cancer.
Yes.
And whether you are then able to access the medical information and access your inner strength to be able to say, I understand that this is terminal. It's 9 months if I keep on chemo.
Which will make me feel like shit and give me no quality of life.
Yeah, which will make me feel like shit. So I'm going to stop chemo, and I don't care if it's a third of that, because 9 months of feeling shit is as shit as 3 months of probably feeling an awful lot better and being able to get my shit together.
And I think it gets really hard when your loved ones want you to keep going because they can't bear the thought of losing you. And you've got that, am I doing this for them or for me?
Yeah.
And it's not just cancer, MS, muscular dystrophy, anyone with a chronic long-term illness.
Yeah, it's super complicated. It's super complicated. And of course, it's not necessarily a long-term illness that's going to take you that year. That if you see your child struggling to care for you and keep a job held down and care for their own children, and you just think, oh, I'm a bloody burden, let me take myself off. Obviously, it's a complicated argument, but I'm terribly keen on being able to choose how I get off this spinning orb. I think it's really important.
I do. When you think of all the national care, the childbirth plans, the lessons that you have to bring a baby into the world, and the planning and the second plans and third plans, but death?
Yeah.
Now, I can't let you go before I ask you a couple of things about Strictly.
Oh, yeah.
Clare was a disco queen.
She was.
What's the one song that will always get you on the dance floor?
Oh, God, there isn't one, honestly.
There isn't one?
No.
Not a dad dance? There's nothing? Song from the wedding?
I played at the wedding, actually.
Did you?
I played with my then brother-in-law. Yeah, we had a little gig. It was great.
Do you guitar or do you sing?
Guitar and singing. Yeah, the two of us playing guitar and singing.
So what's your top song that you'd play in a band?
I think Forget Me on the Floor and Clare's kind of theme tune, it has to be Dancing Queen by ABBA.
Love it.
So I'm going to try and do a dance to that if I survive. I'm just thinking maybe I can see if I can get the band to do it as a waltz time, a 3/4 time.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Because they're an amazing band.
Yeah, they're great, aren't they?
But we'll have to wait and see. I haven't started yet. I've been doing all the preamble stuff, all the
press-ups and the push-ups and the splits.
Well, yeah, that. I'm just trying to stay fit, but a lot of stuff with them already. A lot of the filming, a lot of the wandering around in awe at glitter balls and having ticket tape fall on me and dancing with a broom and being strictly-fied with my shiny outfits and
chest wax.
No. I talked to them yesterday about that. I said, "What about this old man's hair?" And they said, "No, leave it. It's nice."
Okay.
So I can't pretend that I'm not the oldest person on it this year.
Okay.
Which I am, which is very strange because I always thought I was the Juve lead, but I'm not anymore. I'm the old man.
Bit of grey hair.
Yeah. So I'm meeting my partner next week. I still don't know who that is, and they don't know either, which is rather
exciting,
rather excellent. So we've got quite a fun reveal, which of course I can't tell you about.
No. I will wait.
And then we rehearse for the first show. So it all kicks off. It all kicks off. This time next week, I'll be in a cold sweat, obviously.
Loving or hating everything. Now, you have to tell me that you're going to do the Dirty Dancing lift dressed as Willoughby at some point in the show.
I suggested doing the Dirty Dancing lift. I think it's been done a few times.
Who cares?
Yeah. The Dirty Dancing lift dressed as Willoughby. Get in.
Yes.
Fantastic.
Come on now.
Yeah.
Just satisfy my bleeding heart at the age of 21.
Hopefully we'll have a bit of fun with the fact that, I'm an actor and I've been around the block a few times and done a bit of stuff. So we can.
And you're used to wearing makeup and all that.
Yeah, but not that kind of makeup, really.
That's true.
But some of the costumes that I've already been trying on are wonderful, and just wandering up there yesterday to the studios, all the professionals are doing their dance numbers to be scattered throughout the season now. So they're filming them all, and seeing them wandering around in Halloween gear is
wow.
wild. But they're all so lovely and so kind. So I'm just starting to get into the idea that I'll be spending hopefully a few weeks dancing, which I've never done. I'm not a dancer at all.
Not even in Walking on Sunshine?
Well, yeah, but that was that was only, I don't know, a minute and a half of something, and endlessly rehearsed it because I just didn't want to fall over or kick her or stand on her feet.
Yeah, and I guess the waltzes in all the period dramas aren't quite the same as doing a cha-cha and sequins.
No. I mean, all the sort of Austinian stuff is more like a very slow line dance, really. No, it's going to be a whole new thing. But that's the point. And that's what I feel so fortunate about, that having been doing this for 30 years now, I'm setting myself something. I have absolutely no idea if I can do it at all. And that's great. That's a wonderful place to be.
And I love that. You're not scared of failing.
No.
Love it.
Look, every time we do anything, we're setting ourselves up to fail.
Yeah.
Writing a book, any of the performances as an actor, being on stage, people are going to think that's rubbish.
Yeah.
And that's fine. It's a whole other thing, though, I suppose, being totally rejected in front of 12 million people on a Saturday night. But that's part of the gig.
It is. Well, I'll be watching and texting.
Very good. And voting.
Oh, of course. Everyone I know will be ready to vote.
Very good.
But before we say goodbye, I just want to talk about joy.
Mm-hmm.
Because in your book, you wrote, and there are gems.
Mm.
There are tiny, powerful moments if we just make ourselves available to witness and mark them. They are there every day, all around us.
Mm.
Do you think looking death in the face helped you realise this?
Yeah, absolutely. God, was it Kurt Vonnegut or someone said, we're always looking for the big things,
Mm.
And it's only at the end of our life that we realise that the little things were the big things.
Exactly.
And especially in moments where I was in this imprisonment with my sister in her flat for all those weeks, unable to move, literally unable to move. And 1 hour just gently bleeds into the next. And then the bell goes and she's up, and there's this moment and this nugget, this flash of brilliance, this sternum thumping bit of exquisite happiness, because she wakes herself out of a slumber with a smile on her face, or is able to, she drank a smoothie. I'd leave her smoothies in the night because she was always very thirsty, and coming in the morning and there's just smoothie everywhere, and she wakes up and says, yeah, it's all a bit Texas Chainsaw today, isn't it? Or just moments of vulnerability that she allows me to do something, or whatever it might have been. That is the day made beautiful, that one moment.
Yeah.
You can then go, the other 23 hours, 58 minutes, it's fine. It can be humdrum. It can be dark. It can be sad. But this moment has just made this day. And we all have that if we're able to open our eyes, and we're all able to have that if we're just trudging to a tube and the sun peeks out between the clouds, and just for a minute you can stand there with a cold October sun on your face and just feel that, or whatever it might be. And that moment, just hold on to it, ingest it, because these are all we have, really.
I get it. So I did something similar. When I found out that my cancer had grown during chemo, I was at the lowest moment of my life so far, because I knew too much. I needed a reason to smile. So I got a goldfish bowl. And every time something good happened, I'd write it on a card and put it in the jar. It's like my dog being allowed to sit on the sofa. And just seeing that visual jar of memories would always lift me in a dark place. So I'm starting a new jar of joy for the podcast, and you have the honour of filling in the first card for our listeners. So, what's made you smile in the last few days or weeks that you'd like to share with us today?
Seeing unnecessary acts of kindness.
Oh, that's lovely.
Yeah. And I've seen a couple in the last couple of days just out on the street, and they have to be unnecessary.
Yeah.
And that's great, because again, those are the little nuggets, those are little things. You witness an act of kindness, or if you're able to perform an act of kindness that surprises yourself, that's the day. That's what's great.
It's just giving something back and being able to help, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me, Greg. It's been a real pleasure to talk to you. We could have gone on for hours and hours.
It was a joy. And let's hope at some point soon we can actually have a drink face to face. Wouldn't that be good?
I can't wait. You, me and Catherine will change the world when it comes to talking about dying.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I've loved it.
And that brings us to the end of this first episode of Don't Ignore the Elephant. Wasn't Greg wonderful? I must admit I got lost in his voice and forgot I was meant to be interviewing him. He's made me feel hope that we can all find joy in our lives, even when things look really bleak. Now, I'm biased, but I'm going to be voting for him on Strictly, only now I'm imagining those M&S pants underneath his tight dancing trousers. If you want to read Greg's book about how he looked after his sister Clare, it's called Not That Kind of Love, available in all good bookshops. We've covered some pretty challenging topics today, and they might have affected you. If you're feeling a bit wobbly and need to talk to someone, you can always reach out to the Samaritans. I'll put the details in the show notes. Now, Greg mentioned his death box, a place where he keeps internet passwords, spare car keys, everything that the good Mrs. Wise might need when he dies. It's a brilliant idea, and I can't believe I never thought of it before. I'm going to start one. Do you have a death box? I'd love to know. And if you are getting in touch, tell me what's made you smile in the last couple of days, and I'll add it to the podcast jar of joy. In the next episode, I'm going to be talking about one of the biggest taboos there is, sex. But not just sex. Sex after cancer, sex after the menopause, even sex when you're really, really old. I'm going to be speaking to Samantha Evans, also known as Sam Talks Sex, founder of the sex website Joe Divine. Make sure you subscribe so the next episode is ready when you are. And if you do have a few seconds spare in your day, it would be wonderful if you could leave a review and let me know what you thought. Thank you. Don't Ignore the Elephant is produced by Birdline Media in association with Elizabeth Richards.